I actually got sat down in a room, asked, who do I want to live with? I went through a turbulent time with drugs for an amount of time. I was probably quite distanced from relationships. At that time, I sat and I looked and I said, right, I need to design my life. My kind of home life was the first thing. Now it's business. And what's my next move? I had all of those to be able to put me in this position, to be able to push forward and help many, many people around the world. It's tough delivering a design and build job.
So many moving parts to it that can, collapse like dominoes at any minute.
Exactly. It's navigating that, and then there's payments. And I'm building and have built a company that is consistent. We live in a digital age. That's the beautiful thing. I can help people in the other side of the world.
Wes, thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure to be here.
No, I've been looking forward to this episode a lot since we had our Zoom call. We had a little catch up on Zoom.
Yeah.
So I've been looking forward to this. We'll dive into some life, dive into the coaching, dive into Cleo, the whole shebang. But to start with, mate, if possible, if we can pull it back to your youth, your childhood, let us know, what you were like back then.
Yeah, definitely. It started off, let me think. I think the best way for me to break it down is kind of stages in life. My youth, my sort of 0 to 10 was a fairly normal childhood, I would say. But things started to change a lot in my teens. My father left in my teens. So he didn't walk out, but he was very abusive towards my mum and not an amazing figure. Although I actually had quite a close relationship with him, but it just, it wasn't a great situation at home. So at that stage, I actually got sat down in a room. I remember it vaguely, but sat down and it was a decision, asked, who do I want to live with? Which way do I want to go? It was literally...
It's a big decision for a child,
yeah,
isn't it?
But you know what? I think for me, it didn't feel that big a decision at the time. I suppose there are a number of reasons why. Firstly, my brother was sitting there with my mum and they were super close. So I kind of felt that I had 4 eyes staring at me. And obviously I had seen and experienced a number of things at home in terms of, not me being abused, but in terms of my mum. And I suppose there was a just knowing, an inner knowing what is right and what is wrong. Even though I was close with my dad, it was kind of an instinctive reaction of what I needed to do and the decision that I needed to make. If I think I continued and if I lived with my dad, I think I would have gone down a very different route and I would have been a very different person. So decision was made. And ever since that day, as soon as I walked out of that room, that was the last time I ever saw him or spoke to him.
Yeah.
And that was 35 odd years ago now.
You trying to remember how old you are?
Yeah. Actually, I asked my partner yesterday, I was like, how old am I? And she said, you're a decade older than me. And I know how old she is. So that's the way that I remember it.
Gets into blur when you get older.
Yeah, once you're into your mid 40s, the age just kind of disappears and it's like, they just tick over, whatever.
So that, monumental decision at that age, at that time probably didn't feel like it, but it must have sort of changed the trajectory of your life, like you said. Like, how did it pan out sort of the next 5-10 years after that?
Yeah, look, it definitely did. At the time, I didn't feel that it did. I felt... I've always been a very independent individual. I've always had very clear visions and ideas and goals on where I wanted to go and just super independent, basically. And I suppose at the time, I didn't really feel that it affected me too much. I felt good. I went on with my life as a very independent individual. I continued through school, went to sixth form college, and then I went into university. Felt that I was all good. But looking back on it now, and I have the ability to be able to look back on my teens, my 20s, my 30s now, and I can very clearly sort of mark them as packages of who I was and what I learned through those. I'm always about learning, right? That's me. It's always about looking back, understanding, and I always believe that everything happens for a reason and that there's a path in life and that you have to go through these situations, challenges, obstacles, because that's where the growth is, that's where the learning is, that's where you really expand and become who you're meant to become. So looking back on it now, it must have affected me. I went through a turbulent time with drugs for an amount of time, kind of late teens into my 20s. I was probably quite distanced from relationships. I probably didn't put my best out there. I was drifting. I didn't really have a clear plan or idea of what I wanted to do. And I was just going through life quite blind, I would say, not really understanding what it was that I was doing, why I was doing what I was doing, and just going with the flow and really living other people's lives because they were dictating what it was meant to be. Yes, I got into a job, a good job. I was working hard. I was earning good money. I was enjoying myself. I was partying.
Having a party.
Yeah, I was doing all that stuff that you know what, that a majority of people do, right? But looking back on it now, we are the architect. I believe that we are the biggest business that we're ever going to run. You know, us.
As in us as people.
Us as people.
Yeah. I thought you were on about Cleo.
No, us as people.
Fair play.
It's yeah. It's going to get a lot bigger than this. Sure. It's us that are the biggest business we're going to run it. And you know, you got to design your life. You've got to be the architect of your own life. And if you don't, then someone else will be. And I think in my 20s, I realized that a lot, looking back on it now, that I was drifting through. You know, I was cracking on and I was, as I said, doing all the things I was doing and it was fine and all good and having a great time. But actually, I probably wasted. I don't see it as wasted because everything happens, right? Everything teaches you. I learned a lot, but that was my path. And what I like to bring to the table for the youth of today and for what I preach or what I practice is to be able to look at yourself, to ask that question, why am I doing what I'm doing? And what is it that's giving to me? How can I design my life? What do I want out of my life? What's my purpose? What's my reason? What's my why? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? You know, ask those real deep questions, and you don't need to sit there and be a freaking guru about it. But you do need to constantly be knocking at the door of your own inner self to understand what ultimately you want to get out of it.
But you must be well positioned to be able to deliver that to the younger kids or whoever 100%. You coach because of what you've been through and, you Definitely. know, the youth, your childhood, the drugs, the partying, the journey you went on through. Exactly.
And that's my superpower. You know, that is when I come back to the point of why I had to go through all of that, why I had to go through breakups. You know, I don't talk to my brother anymore. I have a very fractured relationship with my mother now. I have no other family. I don't have granddads, grands. I'd never met them before. Uncles, you know, I don't have it. It's me, myself, and I. And my path has put me on that trajectory to be able to take that, to be able to be put into a position and situation where, and we'll come on to it, you know, being a single father myself, having looked after my 13-year-old son for the last 8 years by my own, you know, when I made that decision to look after him, which was a very conscious decision, I got threatened that he was going to get taken away from me, and I had to make a conscious decision to say no, and I had to change my life, and that was on the basis of what happened to me, coming from that fatherless childhood, coming from all that had happened to me. It was an instinctive reaction of knowing what I had to do, and if I didn't do that, I would probably have been. I mean, I think the statistic is in single families, I think 16%. Go with their fathers, or their father decide to take or go after and have actual sole custody of their
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because there's a natural societal belief that, and also right to a degree, rightly so, that the mother born, the mother look after. You know, it's just that gravitational pull towards the mother, which I understand and I get, but I have not a lot of people, but a lot of people don't recognize or realize that I am that. And, you know, it's a big thing. When I say it to people, they don't know anyone else who's potentially in that situation. And for me, it's, I think, about raising awareness. And also, I think a lot of the time that the father doesn't step up. You know, they're too concerned with potentially wanting to live their own life the way that they live their life. And it's the mother's thing to do.
Do you think they rely almost on the fact that if they didn't step up, the mother would probably take over?
100%.
Whereas vice versa. I mean, I don't know this. I'm just sort of...
It was that. Yeah. She's off gallivanting around the world doing whatever she wants to do, you know, and not really a maternal mother, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, you know, just was never there. I was always kind of... I kind of got... I mean, I was with her for 6 months. And then she turned around and said, I'm pregnant. It wasn't planned. It was quite a quick kind of situation. And I was like, I was 32, I think, at the time. And it was like, okay, well, it's happening.
Yeah.
Again, coming back to my childhood, I'm stepping up, right? I'm not going to be in a position. And I stepped up and I was just naturally a lot closer to him. fast forward 5-6 years, I think it was or so, and we split through a very turbulent relationship that was, but we split. We got back together. I actually proposed, and I actually split the wedding off a month before.
Yeah.
A month before it was supposed to go ahead.
Wow.
Because I actually went to a funeral. This is how it all happened. Is I went to a funeral, and I knew something wasn't right. Like, I was doing that kind of trophy wedding
In the gut. Did you feel it in the gut?
100%. It was the trophy wedding of, I need to, or I want to, or I should propose now. So I did, but it was not, oh my God, I love this woman and I really want to be with her. And it was, actually, I'll tell you what it really was. It was wanting to have that father and mother together, because I never had it. And that ultimately meant that I probably stayed with her for 3, 4, 5 years longer than what I should have. Yeah. Because I remember kept telling myself, I want to stay together because I never had that. And that's the right thing to do, not the right thing to do. It's some crazy statistic, like 17% of people are actually happy in their relationships.
That is mental.
Yeah, they stay together because of the fear of the unknown, financial, issues or concerns, or they just are super concerned that they don't know what else is out there.
Yeah.
What else is out there? Am I going to be by my single for the rest of my life? Is it the right thing? You can't stay with someone just because you think it's the right thing, or you're worried about something. You'd stay with them because you love them and that you work together. I always say to a lot of people that I coach is, you got to have the same core values. You got to have the same ideology. You got to have the same beliefs, because if the foundation of us is not the same, then I believe that the longevity of that relationship is not correct.
And I suppose that will boil down to in-depth conversations to have with your partner. Yeah. Because a lot of people probably don't do that with their partners. They don't sit down and, let's actually have a proper conversation about what are your morals? How do you see yourself as a mother or a partner, or how do you see X, Y, and Z?
So true. And it's funny you should say that, because I remember towards the end of that relationship, I remember I could never connect with her on that level. She was very surface and I was a lot deeper. And my connectedness, my spirituality, kind of that side of me was starting to come out at that time, sort of 8-10 years ago. And I was starting to get very connected and really kind of dig in and scratching the surface of what is underneath and what lies beneath. And it was just completely surface with her. So I started writing notes, starting writing my thoughts and my ideas down, because whenever we would talk, it would turn into an argument and it would just be dismissed, and it made me feel shit. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to step away and I'm going to start putting my thoughts and ideas and feelings down in black and white. So I did that, and again, just got boohooed and, wasn't read. And and it was that gut feeling. I just knew it. And like I was saying, I went to this funeral and it was actually there. Myself and my son went. I thought it was her son as well. Weird, that's actually said that. But yeah, me and him went, and it just came to me. I just knew. I was away for 3 days, and it clicked. I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I got back, walked through, and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go through the wedding. And her reaction was, oh, okay, well, never mind.
Oh, really?
And we'll crack on. So, even that was just, it was a bit of a kind of a trophy wedding for her, kind of getting in with a successful guy, you know what I mean? Not that I'm hugely successful, but that type of mentality of, it's a good life. I'm cool, I'm set, rather than, oh my God, I love this guy. Yeah. And he is loving my life, and we get on and we're connected and we understand each other and the values are right. And yeah, it was just different. And then from there, it was amicable for a while. And then I moved her into an apartment, and she then stopped paying the rent, and I put a deposit down and kind of done all this stuff for her to help her. And she was kind of just not doing what needed to be done to be able to keep that apartment. So
well, it says a lot about you if you've made the conscious decision this isn't working. And then you've tried to help out afterwards as well, because there's probably not a lot of people who would, you've got an apartment, you've tried to set her up for whatever's coming next, X, Y, and Z. So it probably says a lot about you as a person. It was
2 minutes up the road. My whole thing was, I wanted, again, if we can't be together, then I want my son to at least be able to see his mum, which is what I did, and it worked for a couple of months, but then she decided to take another tact. And it was when she called me And I said, look, I'm not continuing to pay the rent, and you're going to need to deal with yourself now. And she said, that's it. If you don't do it, I'm going to take your son away from you, and you're never going to see him again. And obviously it was a flick of a switch then. It was just instinctive to say, well, okay, fine. Then, I'm going down a certain path. And I went down that path and went through the courts and got sole custody. She didn't actually even turn up. She knew, don't fight me on this one.
You're winning.
Yeah. But I was very conscious at the time of saying, I am still going to live a life. I'm not going to let this dictate and take up all of everything, because I'm a sociable guy. I'm running businesses. I train, I'm passionate about being around people and enjoying life. And I think that it's very important to have that balance. And it's very easy to look at it and say, well, I can't have it all. But you can. You just need to design it correctly. And it took some time to be able to do that. Don't get me wrong. There was a transitional period, but you have the belief, you have the desire, you have the want, you have the expectation and the knowing that it's going to happen, and you make it happen. Like, it's non-negotiable. It wasn't as though I stepped into it and said, oh, well,
you had
maybe,
to,
or maybe like that. And that's been a life story of mine. I've had to.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you build up resilience, right? And I think that's one of my core things is, from a young age, I've built up resilience of occasion or situation or challenge or obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And that builds up a knowing that whatever happens, it's going to be overcome.
Yeah, well, you have. You're literally your own example, pretty much.
Definitely.
So many different situations have happened. You've just had to overcome each one.
Yeah, you just get on with it. No moaning, no groaning, no looking at it. I always say the past is history and the future is a mystery. Live in the present and focus on what you're doing and be good and live by core values. Do good, serve, have gratitude. Be a good person, right? And you're going to go through those challenges, but it's like a muscle. I always explain it to people. It's exactly like a muscle. You don't grow a muscle by not stretching it. You've got to stretch yourself, right? You've got to break it to breaking point. And at that point is when you start to build and grow. And people look at their exterior body, whereas I like to look at the interior of the body, the mind, the emotions, the feelings, the actions. That's what the real thing is. And I see that as a workout just as much as a physical workout.
But those things aren't so well documented. No. The internal, it's the external that's so well documented. Correct, nowadays.
Because we can see it.
Yeah. Whereas the internal is not so well documented.
Yeah. But it's the bigger thing.
Yeah.
We just don't see it. But we only see, what is it, like 0.2% of the ether, or what is around us, the physicality of what is around us. But there's so much, the oscillating of the energy and the waves and everything that we don't see with our human eyes doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's the bigger thing. And if you can tap in and connect into that, then you start tapping into a
completely different world.
Yeah, a higher divinity.
Mindset, spirituality, however you want to call it.
100%.
Let's just pull back and explore 20s to 30s Wes. Like, where did that take you? Because you obviously,
crazy guy.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Because obviously you've hit the parties and whatever else you mentioned before. So how did that transition? Like, where did you get to next?
Yeah, it was probably up to my early 30s, if I'm honest.
You gave it a good go then.
I went hard. Yeah, for sure. From university, I had a great time, made some great friends. But I went hard and I just wasn't attached. And I kind of came out of uni and I wasn't quite sure. I did business economics. I didn't do great. I got a degree, but it wasn't great. And I didn't focus and I didn't do what I needed to do. But I made some really good friends there. So I came out of university and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I fell into a job. It was one of my friends, his brother was setting up a business and he said, do you fancy coming and running some cables? Funny enough, Cat 5, Cat 6 cables. So I was like, yeah, why not? Let's go do it. So I started into that, and that's how I kind of got into the whole fit out to a degree. Data, I was on the tools, data, electrics, phone systems. I was a fully qualified Samsung engineer in terms of phone systems. So I kind of fell into it, did well. We were growing a business. I was obviously very senior within the business. Like I think I was the second person, and we grew the business up to 50, 60 employees, and then sold it. So I kind of grew up and hit work hard, but partied harder. And like I said, a lot of navigating drugs, relationships. I wasn't in a long-term relationship at that time. So I was just partying, like a decade of being out. Like I mentioned to you previously, I was living in Shoreditch.
Yep.
You know, the epicenter of craziness, very different to what it is now. But it was it was a great time, but it taught me so much. I suppose what I look at is I got it out of me, because I think a lot of people, either they go into relationships super young and they live through their late teens and 20s in a relationship, and then they get to a stage where they look at it and say, I mean, some people are super happy, but I think a lot of people look at it and say, well, what else is out there?
Yeah, and then they probably end up having to go later in life.
Exactly.
So everything that you've said and what a lot of us have done in, you know, I say a previous life, but 10, 15 years ago. Correct. You know, sometimes these people get to 40 and they're like, oh, I missed that out. Do you know what? I might have
and then I suppose that's why they call it the midlife crisis, right? Because you're like, shit, what else is out there? You know, there's a whole big world out there. And I think it's super important to experience it, to throw yourself into it. And I can honestly say that I did that in my 20s, and I got it out my system and I felt good with it to a degree. But maybe it meant that I started kind of what I wanted to do and be. And, you know, I was very, I got comfortable. You know, I was kind of in that comfortable zone where I was safe. Yep. But it kept me small.
Yeah.
And that definitely, I think, happened. I was living someone else's life. Yes, I was a shareholder and director, and you know, I was kind of high up in the company, but it wasn't my company.
So that wasn't enough for you then?
No. I've always, it's funny, I never stretched myself at that stage, because obviously I was like, well, I'm getting good money, I'm partying, like, you know, I'm
living
good.
The life is what, you know, late 20s, that's what, early 30s, whatever it was. Yeah. That's what.
I didn't have the eye on, well, hold on, what's the bigger picture here? What do I actually want? And, you know, I'm a natural born entrepreneur, but it's only come out in me probably slightly more recently, because I made the decision to break away in 2020 was when I broke away, 1 month before COVID. That's when we set up Cleo, and when
so
I
that
set up
broke
Satoris.
Away from the data cabling company, was it?
Yeah, well, we actually sold that company. It was actually a telecoms company. We sold that company, and then we actually kind of we wanted to move office. It was actually how it happened. And then we got some quotes in to move office, and we were like, whoa, that's expensive. So we're like, we'll do it ourselves. Yeah. And we're like, actually, like, if they are charging that for this and we can do it for this, there's good margins in office refurbishments. Yep. Not so good these days, not as good as what it was, not in the heyday.
Tight nowadays, mate. It's tight nowadays,
mate. So not as good, but we recognized it, and then, you know, we kind of went into that, and obviously with my experience as kind of on the tools, so to speak. You know, I was on the tools, I was a salesman, I was an account manager, I was a caller, like I've done.
You're well-rounded.
I was a project manager. You know, I've seen everything, which obviously gives me quite that ability. So again, that is a very much a positive. So yeah, my 20s were great, but definitely I think held me back, but taught me a lot and got a lot out of my system. So I'm always a look at the bright side, look at the silver linings. What can I learn from it? And what can I take away, and what is it teaching me?
Yeah. Also, like, I mean, me and Joe, the man behind the camera, were talking on the way up it about like the memories that you realistically, you only really take memories with you anyway. So like your party days, you know, I'm sure there was some good, bad, ugly, whatever you want to call it, memories, but you've taken them with you and you live with them, and also you've been able to learn from them as well. Definitely. So like, you know, you might have had an elongated party period, but you know, you've learned from it. You've been able to look back in hindsight. Definitely.
Our hindsight is a great thing if used correctly. You don't get stuck on the hindsight.
Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? When you get stuck on it.
Exactly. Because a lot of people do that. A lot of people are still living the same life that they lived God knows how many years ago, and still scarred by what happened to them 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Some people, you know, look at it and they're still pissed off, or they're still hating someone, or they're still negative about someone. And it's like you're carrying that venom around in you all of that time.
Do you think if you do carry that venom with you, you hold that grudge, that you just attract that negative energy?
100%.
Yeah.
You get what you give.
Yeah.
You know, it's an energy. It's reciprocal, right? It's like is it the third law of motion, or I can't remember which law of motion it is, but basically whatever you give out is going to come back to you in the equal or greater force. So ultimately you got to give out some good energy, right? You got to give out the good stuff. You got to give out the positivity. You got to give out happiness, joy, love. You got to give out all of these high vibrational frequency feelings and emotions. And that ultimately is going to come back. Now, it's not always going to come back to you. I believe that humans are this is quite a morbid way of looking at it, but this is what I truly believe, that we're here to suffer. The essence of life is to suffer. And it's our duty to actually transition or turn that suffering into joy.
Why do you think it is? Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt, mate, but why do you think that essence of life, from your opinion, is to suffer?
Because that's where we grow. That's where the growth is if we were sent here and everything's fine and dandy and we're loving life and everything's put onto a platter and a plate, we chose to be here. I believe that we are on a soul's journey, and we're living in a physical body. Our physical body is just a physical mechanical thing here for us to live in this environment. And we're giving a personality, again, to be able to operate in an environment that is earth. But really, we are a soul. We are an ever living, everlasting, forever infinite soul. And we made decisions. We made a pact when we came here to say, hey, I want to learn X, Y, and Z. And I believe that out of this world, it is pure love. It's pure light, it's pure love, it's pure ecstasy, it's goodness, it's greatness. And, you live that for eternity, for infinite. You got to feel some bad stuff to learn and to grow and to actually feel it. And I believe we're put here to be able to do that.
Interesting question for you, actually, because I was sat speaking to my brother actually a week or so ago, and he asked me, we're speaking about the difference between the spiritual and the physical, and he asked me, what do you think happens to the spiritual after the physical dies, as in like our human bodies? So what do you think happens to the spiritual after the physical goes?
So,
because sorry, Matt, I should have said, because in my head I was thinking, there's no way that you can go around this world consuming energy from all different types of people, the positive, the negative, the hate, the love, whatever it is, consume it into your body, into your spiritual body, create your own vibrational energy. And then all of a sudden you just die. No. And then that energy just dissipates. It just can't just dissipate and just go.
No, definitely not. It's all, it's a soul's journey to learn and live. Something that I think is very unique on this planet, something that we're doing. But I don't believe, I believe in incarnation and reincarnation. I believe that karma is, karma that we're living now might have been many, many generations ago or many, many lifetimes ago of something that we did. And we're still feeling that karmic cycle of making it right or paying karma back, because to pay karma back, you have to do good. It's a cycle, right? Yeah. You do bad, or you have to do good to change that. So I believe that we die, our physical body dies, but our spirit goes on. And then I don't know whether we go up to a committee and we say, well, how was that for you? Yeah, that was pretty cool. I think I did pretty well. And then maybe we level up to another, say, yeah, you passed. Or if we don't, and we lived a very blind or negative life and we didn't grow, then it's like, well, you're back in the same thing until you learn, and you go through it again. And look, it's God knows, literally, who knows? But I do feel that it's everything is a cycle. Everything in life is a cycle. I think the universe or the earth is in like a 25,000 year cycle at the moment. There's a huge transformational change happening in humans where we're getting more connected. We're learning to be more connected spiritually. Some of the conversation, this conversation, if we had this 100 years ago,
those who are on drugs,
I think we would be
wacky.
Yeah, I think we'd probably be hung. Yeah. Maybe that's 500 years ago, but you'd be a witch, right?
Yeah, true.
It's crazy. So it's humans, I think, are changing, more connected, spiritually understanding quantum fields, quantum physics. The days of when physicians and mathematicians were looking at it and saying that the spiritualists were crazy. Well, now they're looking at it and saying, well, hold on, there is a quantum field, and there is particles, and there is waves, and there is stuff that we can't see. And with new photography, that you can see the energy. I can't remember the name of Semyon Kernin. I can't remember exactly the name, but he designed a camera which actually enables you to see the energy radiating off your body.
Wow.
So, it's like the physics and the maths is now catching up to say, well, actually, yeah, there is something else, and there is another energy field, and our brain is there to receive that, and we send the waves out in our brain. That's the kind of mechanics, and our emotions and our heart is what receives it back. That's when you start to manifest, right? Is when you send out the visuals, the imagination, the visualization. You use your brain correctly, whether it's the silver method or any other method in terms of meditation or visualization, and it's your heart that pulls it back, because you've got to believe it, right? You've got to be it. You've got to know that it's actually it, and then it starts to come back. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you do that on a consistent basis, because a lot of people, right, they go, well, I've done a week of it.
Hasn't worked.
So
I'm gonna give up.
It's like, well, maybe sometimes it does take a week. Maybe it takes a year, 10 years, 20 years. Who knows? But it's a lifestyle. That's the difference. I meditate every day. I visualize every night. And that for me, and then I go to the gym and do my body. That for me is a necessity. Even more so the inner world, because if you can control your mind, if you control your thoughts, what is it? Again, here's another breakdown from the 100-hour rule that I said to you earlier. Breakdown, say we say 1,000 thoughts an hour, right? Because what they say, we have 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day, something like that. Break it down. So let's say that's 1,000 or 2,000 thoughts an hour. Break it down into 500 actions potentially, and 20 emotions in an hour. If you break it down like that, and then you start to be intentional and conscious about what you're thinking, what are those 1,000 thoughts? Well, 750 of them are about my past. The other 250 are about what's going on in the future, fear of the future. Well, hold on, why don't you just have 1,000 of them about where you are now? Yeah, there's an element of looking into the future, right? Understanding the direction you want to go, and you do your goal setting and your visualization. That's why you should do it on a fairly regular basis, because that then gives you that inner knowing and belief and understanding of the trajectory that you want to take. And then you just need to live in the moment. Then you just need to stop thinking about the past, stop worrying about the future. Something, what was it, like 80%, 85% of our thoughts, negative, they never happen. All the things that you think in the future that are going to happen, and it's going to happen, oh my God, it's going to be so bad. It's like it never happens. And you're just using up valuable energy, if not anything else, wasting it on something that you don't even know what's going to happen. Act in the present, because the present is when you design the future. That's when you design the tomorrow.
Becoming intentional is really difficult though, isn't it? To go from, you've said the thought process in the future or the thought process in the past, like having like present thoughts, being intentional, being conscious with them is the difficult part for a lot of people, and myself as well, because I'm the same, like I sometimes think into the future, like the fear of like, oh, what happens if that happens? And then sometimes you make up this like diagram of events that could potentially happen, and then you become conscious and you're like, wow, like the first section of that diagram hasn't even happened, so how have I created a 5-section diagram to what could happen?
But I think you overcome that by really working on your integrity, really working on your core values, really working on understanding your why, really understanding and designing your life. I noticed that huge change when I actually made a conscious decision to design my life. I sat down, and this is something that I coach. You sit down and you work through, what are your core values? What's your goal setting? Your 1, 3, 5, 10-year goals. What's your mission, your vision, and your reason? What else what do you care about? What are you passionate about? You do your ikigai, which is the Japanese, what do you love? What are you good at? What's the world need? And what can you get paid for? You intentionally design that, and then you operate from that every day. Every decision that I make is based on knowing my values, based on, does it align with who I am now and who I want to be in the future? And then once you start doing that on a consistent basis, every day, with every decision, with every thought, then it's very easy. And I have to take a step back sometimes. It's not that often, because I've trained myself, but even I take a step back and I say, hold on, I can catch myself. You catch yourself, right? And sometimes people take days, worrying. But I catch myself in a very short period of time now to say, hold on, what am I worrying about? Something that's not even happened yet, that I don't even need to worry about. Trust the process. Trust that you're a good person. Trust that you're making decisions based from what relates to you and where you believe you need to be, and trust that it will come good. And you're going to live through crap. Something's going to happen. there's always going to be something. There's always going to be something on the outside world. Something's going to go wrong. Someone's not going to say something that you want to say. The decision's going to go the wrong way. A deal's not going to happen. You're going to lose money. You're going to have an argument with something's going to happen. It's always going to happen. But for me, it's like I've got this inner calmness. Like I saw this 30-second video the other day. It's just a crashing wave, like an amazing slow-mo of a crashing wave. And it got me thinking, like, that's what we are. On the surface, on the exterior, there's always something. There's going to be crashing and craziness and this and that. But underneath, you swim underneath, inside, it's calm, it's serene, and you're in control. And that's what we as humans need to be. We're like water, right? On the inside, we need to be calm and chilled. But on the outside, there's always going to be something happening. It's how we respond to it, not react. Because a response is where you accept it and you take it, and then you consciously or intentionally respond to it in a way that has love or positivity or the positive vibes, rather than a reaction, which is an instant, and that's what we've been designed as personalities to protect ourselves. Well, hold on, that's not right, and I don't believe in that, and you're doing it to screw me over, and you're saying that, and maybe they are, but who gives a damn? Like, whatever, get on with your life. Like, and if people are going to do that on a consistent basis, then they don't need to be in my life.
Christ, I'm having some serious self-evaluations. Yeah.
I do like to go, I should have told you, I like to go deep.
I'm sat here evaluating myself. Like, it's really interesting, mate. It really is. I definitely want to talk way more about that, but I also want to touch on, like the business side of it. So, you started on site, you worked your way up, your shareholder director, then it was sold, and then you wanted to do it for yourself. So tell us about that.
Yeah, a really interesting journey. So I worked for the guys that I worked with previously, I had worked with for about 20 years. And, I classed them as friends. And in hindsight, look, they were friends, but they definitely had their own best interests at heart, if I'm honest. And I recognize that now. But ultimately, they were probably driving the ship forward. I was younger than them. And I kind of went along for the ride and mixed that in with the whole 20s and like, cool, I'm out and partying. And then 30s, having a kid, that obviously took priority. And then my relationship turmoil. And I can see it, like I made a conscious decision. Once I decided to split from my partner, at that time I sat and I looked and I said, right, I need to design my life. My relationship and my son and my kind of home life was the first thing. Now it's business. And what's my next move? And at that stage, I knew that I needed to move. I knew that it wasn't right. I knew that I wasn't happy at that time. Things were starting to happen. We had grown the business up to sort of 20 odd staff, probably 10 million turnover, something like that maybe. And we were in a position where I was ready to punch through, right? I was ready to step up into the MD role and to grow the business. Let's go. We had a good team around us. It was a good vibe, but there was kind of this, no, like, let's just sit here in a family business and let's not do it. And I was like, no, I want to go.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of that change period where I was ready to push, but I was being held back. And I could feel the chains on me quite heavily. And they didn't allow it. And I kind of sat in there for probably a year to 2 years, accepting it. But there was just this build up of animosity and just like...
Did it get quite toxic?
Yeah, super toxic.
Yeah.
And at the same time, decisions were being made that were not the right decisions for the business, behind the scenes, not potentially being communicated to or discussed with. So there's just many different things happening, which just kind of fed in. But one of the positive things out of that was Tom, my now business partner for Cleo. Me and him built up a really good relationship, like a brotherhood, if you want to call it. And I know that at the same time, he was also wanting to push. He was also wanting to grow. He was coming in. He's a decade younger than me, but he wanted to come into his own as well. He prodded me for sure. He was prodding me. He was like, Conways, let's go.
Yeah,
let's do it. And it was a bit more difficult for me. I'd been there a lot longer. He was a shareholder, but I was a director and shareholder. And it was just, I always feel the right time to do something and it just wasn't quite right. And then certain things happened in his life, and he was like, right, I'm going, and he jumped, and at that time we made an agreement that I was going to do the same, and then I did, and that was in February 2020.
And that was the start of Cleo, right?
That was the start of Cleo, and very soon after that, kind of from about 2017, again, when my relationship, when I made a decision to move on from my relationship and look after my son, that's when my personal development passion started as well. And that was for me. That was my growth and me wanting to invest in myself, which is kind of that tagline, your best investment is in yourself. It's the biggest business you're ever going to run. So that's when my personal investment started. That's when my empowering journey started. That's when my connectedness and spirituality started. And from there, I then started Cleo. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Obviously, COVID happened. So I had time to be able to dedicate a lot of time into kind of idea creation and what was my path. And I'm still doing that. But then I created Satoris Coaching as well. So kind of within the same year.
Yeah.
I created.
It's a hell of a year, that.
It was a hell of a year, like lockdown.
You've had a few of those, haven't you?
I've had many years, right? Jeez, like it's been 40 years or 45 years of adversity, but I couldn't have wished for anything more though, because it's taught me so much, and the grounding and the foundation that it's given me is unbelievable. I feel like I'm only just starting to live now, but with all of that experience, like it's strong. It's strong. And I still feel like a baby.
Yeah.
Feel like a kid in it. I've still got much more to grow, but yeah, it's exciting. Super excited.
So with the inception of Cleo, there's yourself and there's your business partner. You've decided to go out on your own 2020.
Correct.
So you had a period of time where you could plan, you could, design the Cleo as such, the company itself.
Well, we were actually the workplace partner when we started.
Okay.
So we rebranded 6 months ago.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, you're right. I was fortunate enough to have a job when we left.
Yep.
The company delivered that, or started to deliver that job, because obviously construction could still work during COVID.
Yep.
And I knew the owner pretty well. I was straight up with him. I said, look, this is it. He goes, I'm with you. Let's go. And obviously that gave that kind of stepping stone. We had a job. It was just Tom and I. Between Tom and I, we cover off most things within the business.
Yep.
With my technical knowledge and understanding and experience, with Tom's sales and business dev sort of abilities, between us just covering each other's blind spots, So we're a very strong team in that regard, which is very fortunate. But that's why we work so well as friends, firstly, and as business partners, secondly. Never a bad word said between us. And we have always, I will always want the best for him as an individual and as a brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were fortunate enough to have that job. We delivered that during lockdown, which, went swimmingly well. And that kind of got us through. During that time, like you said, I was able to do a lot of personal development stuff and thinking about Satoris and kind of working that, but also, with the workplace partner, with TWP. What were we doing? Let's design the website. What's the trajectory? What are the core values? Why are we doing what we're doing? And, it was operating from my living room in my house. I was I'm very blessed to own a house. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was an amazing summer, right? It was a beautiful summer in COVID 2020. I remember it vividly because I worked from home like most people. But I was very blessed to have a lovely garden with bifolds that open all up, and my living room faces onto the garden, south facing. So Tom and I would brainstorm most days, sun, 25, 30 degree heat, had got a lovely sort of patio and we just were there, just, kind of spitballing and coming up with ideas and thinking and obviously working, delivering jobs and navigating contractors and setting up bank accounts and all the stuff that you have to do.
Navigating contractors is probably the hardest thing in my opinion for the whole thing. And well, you're well adversed because you were the contractor and now you're the one sort of navigating them. But so inception 2020 and then you had that project that you were able to deliver. Like how aggressively did you guys be able to grow, and like what happened after?
So end of 2020, I had a good friend who worked in a large facilities company, and they were operating in an office block in central London for a large, well-known company, very big brand, and they needed some work done. And she worked for a large facilities company, and she said, "I want to work with you guys." She obviously knew the situation and trusted us. And then we got that contract. So that then enabled us to push through with a good name, a large brand name.
Cool.
And that pushed us through into 2021. And then kind of the sort of the heavens opened in 2021. Sort of a few more projects started to come through. We won some good projects, some good size projects, delivered those. And then it was sort of mid to end 2021 where we then got some really big projects come through from existing relationships, because obviously during that 2020 I was hitting the phones. Tom and I were hitting the phones. We're hitting our old client base. We were hitting cold calling. We were trying to pivot on doing a sort of different way of working, and the COVID way of working and working from home sort of setups, and all sorts of stuff.
It was turbulent, wasn't it?
You just try everything, right? You're just on there and you're just speaking to people and you're just happy to talk to someone, and you just put it out there. So we just pivoted and we did anything and everything, and you just get stuck in. So 2021 was very positive. End of 2021 was, that's when it really kind of kicked on. And in 2022 we had some large projects sort of come through that we delivered, and then we started to grow the crew then.
And were you always design and build, or were you so you've always been design and build?
Always design and build.
So when you first started, between you and Tom, was one of you design and one of you build, or you mucked in together? Like how did it sort of look?
So it was, I'm definitely the technical one.
Sure.
I very blessed to have a lot of knowledge, and I kind of can pull all of that different knowledge together to understand every entity of a build, ranging from the mechanical to the electrical to the flooring to the partitionings to the data to the joinery. I pull it all together. So it was very much me. In terms of design, it's a good point actually. We obviously have designers. Actually, neither Tom or I are officially a designer. I will put it out there.
At least you're honest.
Although I say that, I definitely do have a bit of a design flair, and a few of the earlier projects we did design ourselves.
What do they look like?
Fantastic. Client absolutely loves them. 100%. Look, design is just getting underneath the skin of the client. Like, who are you, and what do you want? And how do you operate? And asking the right questions. Ask a better question, get a better answer, right? That's one of my mottos. So ask a good question, get the answer, listen, which you'd be surprised how many people just don't bloody listen in meetings. It's so critical to actually listen to what the other person is saying. That's why you got two ears, right? And one mouth. So hear it and then dissect it and break it down. Now, the only challenge we have is we don't have AutoCAD skills or SketchUp skills or anything like that. So, but we have a lot of contacts. We're personable people, if that makes sense, likable people. And, we had designers that kind of we freelanced in, and that's how we got the design resource and how we're going to move forward from there. So yeah, you're right. Maybe not so. You caught me on that one. Maybe not so much the design aspect, but we definitely got through it. You make a plan. You
mentioned those personal skills. Like, do you think they're one of the most important things, especially in our industry, because a lot of it is being a people's person and it's contacts and it's staying top of mind to people. So being personable, it's difficult to find personable people within a business.
Yeah, it's huge. I think actually even more so these days. It's built on relationships. It's definitely one thing that we found. Relationships are a huge part of winning business, of navigating new business, and of obtaining repeat business. Right? I mean, the easiest type of business to get is a repeat client. All right. So we have a very high repeat client base. And that is done on, because like it's tough delivering a design and build job.
Yeah, definitely.
It really is. There's a lot of,
it's intricate, isn't it? There's
so
many moving parts to it that can, collapse like dominoes at any minute.
Exactly. And if the client doesn't get exactly what they want at the end, well, then it's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And then, it's navigating that. And then there's payments and there's JCTs and it's contractual. So it really is super, super critical that it's built up on relationships and establish those. So, and that's even more so in this day and age.
And I imagine you probably get on well like that because the type of person you are. You obviously radiate energy and whatnot. So I can imagine when you get in a room with a client, it's probably easier for someone like yourself to be able to get on with them and to understand their actual pain points. And I suppose the coaching business probably ties hand in hand with being able to secure clientele for Cleo as well.
100%. Because you're always looking at the human factor. You're always looking, and one of the things here at Cleo is we look at the culture. We look at a holistic approach to workplace design and build. I mean, our tagline is human quality design and build. We want to be human. We want to be authentic. We want to be connected, not just with our projects, but with our people, with our clients, with our suppliers. Coming from that side, I know suppliers get a hard rap with a lot of businesses in our industry.
And get the blame usually.
They get the blame and they get hit and they scapegoat.
Yeah, it's an easy cop out though, isn't it?
Easy cop out. And from us, we've always treated our team, and part of that team is our contractor base, our subcontractor base, as part of us. And that's why they look after us.
Yeah. How difficult have you found it to build a trustworthy subcontractor base? Sorry.
Look, I've been around the block a while now. So it hasn't. I've built up good contractors over a long period of time. So it has been difficult, and they come and go, but generally we have a very strong contractor base. We have spread. We don't obviously put all eggs in one basket. I think it's important to have that diversity. Keeps people hungry, and also means that you're not overloading, which many years ago I went through, maybe 15 odd years ago, when we used to split out all the trades, and you can overload one and it can cause a challenge because unfortunately at that stage they were just taking, but then they weren't necessarily delivering. So it kind of didn't fall over, but it hurt. I remember being in a few different positions where it was like they couldn't deliver the way that I wanted them to. So again, you diversify, you spread. But yeah, you build them up and then you stay connected and you stay contacted and you work with them and you look after them. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do.
It's the same. Yeah. Every contract business without the subbies, you're technically nothing.
No, exactly.
Because you can't carry the projects out.
A lot of them are small companies, right? Yeah. They're not one-man bands, but they're smaller companies, trying to make a living and trying to do right. And they just want to work with people that respect them.
Yeah.
And that give them the time of day and look after them and pay them and all this good stuff.
So how's the team out? I'm pointing behind us because that's where the team is. But how has the team at Cleo grown from just the pair of you two, and then how has it sort of expanded from there? So
first things first is quality people. It's quality for us all the way. I mean, our three core values are authenticity, partnership, and quality. And quality specifically is not just in the projects that we deliver, but the people that we employ. So we wanted to get quality individuals. And for me, that was first kind of the senior management team in place, getting those individuals in place. And a lot of them come from the big players.
Yeah.
And haven't been happy there. Quite a common theme actually in Cleo is a lot of people, the majority, if not all the people that work here, have come from places where they were not treated right. They were not looked after. They were kind of just expected to do what they were expected to do. There was workplace toxicity.
Yeah.
That's the word.
They're almost just like one of many, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And what we offered was a very unique, dynamic, fresh approach. With two personable individuals who are passionate about what they're doing, who wanted to build a brand, something very unique and different, wanted to do things differently, a fresh approach to quite a old school industry.
Very old school. Yeah, you're right.
And we wanted to provide an environment where people could thrive, not just survive, where they could spread their wings and they could be who they needed and wanted to be. So getting the right people, the management, the senior management on board first, that was really critical. Obviously, a designer.
I thought you were the designer.
Yeah. yeah. I used the AutoCAD to measure. And then there was kind of the delivery side as well. And then we kind of just built from there. It was jobs in, and then it was just eking up a little bit more and then edging up a bit more and just, gradually kind of growing and employing the right people at the right time to deliver, amazing projects.
So what's the overall goal with Cleo then going forward? I'm going to ask you as well about the whole life coaching thing as well, goal of that, because I'm sure somehow that will tie hand in hand.
Definitely. So the goal of Cleo, look, it's really difficult, right? Because it's so easy to put like financial statistics. So we want to hit this number or that number. For us, I want to build, and am building and have built, a company that is consistent, a company that delivers outstanding work and is the best place to work. And those are the kind of the matrix that I want to hit. I want people to want to come to work. I want it to be a destination that they love to work at. I want to put great work out there, really unique designs with culture and a workplace. And, it's kind of earning the commute to work. I think that's a really good phrase. Is companies these days, they need to design a workspace or a workplace where their employees, they earn that commute. They want to come to work. And I think that's really critical. So I would say, we want to gradually grow. I mean, we're self-funded, self-growth. It's a gradual growth, but it's also the consistency, and it's having fun, and it's building environment that, is delivering amazing workplaces, amazing spaces, and a great place to work at.
You touched on culture there a little bit as well. Like how prominent do you see designs going, not just now, but in the future, that are based around workplace culture?
Massive, huge. The COVID era is gone, and now people want to come back. Clients, companies, I think, Google, I think, are now enforced. No, Boots, was it? Someone's enforcing like 5 days a week in the office now.
Yeah.
Like there is a big push, and also in this day and age, with the new workforce, the Gen Zs, I think they're called, coming through, they expect more. Attraction to companies and retention in companies. People walk with their feet now. The days of in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where people would stay at a job and they stay there for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? They stay there for a long period of time because that's just what you do.
Yeah.
Time's changed. People will walk. People will go and they'll find somewhere better and bigger, not necessarily bigger, but better to work at. And companies need to provide an environment that is culturally correct, so enables personal growth. And this kind of links in with the Satoris aspect, because my take on that is I look at the holistic approach. I believe that companies need personal development for their people to make them the best individuals they can be, but they also need business growth or business or professional development as well. So they need to grow in their business, because the majority of people want to do better at work, right? They want to achieve more. They want to bring more to the table, and they want to grow and evolve into a better individual. And that's generally through their work. So, but they also need to grow and have strong foundations. So my take and my niche, let's call it, is the intertwining of personal and professional growth to empower transformative growth for individuals and businesses. Because
long gone are the days of leaving your personal life at home and not bringing them to work. Because I know there's obviously situations where you don't want to bring it to work, but I think it's quite important that it does come to work, because you spend all of your time with people at work. Like, I'm sure you see some of your employees out there more than you see your son, I would imagine, sometimes. 100%. Gone are the days of just leaving personal at home. So the whole design element around bringing like a personable culture to the workplace or office space,
so important. And it's the personal development for individuals, because if they are working, if they're being right, I normally say if they're being well at home, they've got well-being in the office. And if they can merge those two, because, it's so difficult to be able to come to work and hide or not feel right. And there's always something happening. But if you can merge their growth and empowerment as a transformative growth and empowerment as an individual, if you could look at mastering their mind or creating better habits or progressing their passion and purpose and enabling side projects or aligning their vision and goals or disciplining their consistency or powering up their positivity or, enabling an attitude of gratitude, these aspects, that's what I call life mastery, kind of the ones I just reeled off then. I kind of box into my life mastery course, because that's what I believe people need to be able to master their life. If they have these skills, if they create and be a better person, then they're going to perform better at work. And I think that businesses need to invest into that.
Yeah.
They need to look at that and their people, which is their biggest asset. Your people are your biggest, your payroll's your biggest asset, your biggest outgoing each month. So they need to invest in that. They need to invest in their people, but they need to invest it in the right way. There needs to be a structured approach of investment in it, not just throwing something out or an odd yoga class. It
doesn't work. Yeah.
That's potentially fine for maybe, a bit of mindfulness each month.
Yeah.
But what's happening on the inside, really, when they go home? What's happening at home? What's happening with them? What's their foundation? What's their inner world looking like? Because it can't happen on the outside if it doesn't happen on the inside first.
Interesting question, actually. So you're obviously your whole life coaching business that you run side by side with Cleo. Like, where do you see that going to? What's the goal of that? How do you want to impact the people you're coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I want to touch 1 million people's lives with empowering them with personal development and transformative growth. I want to take my experience and my knowledge, and I want to help others step up, level up their game. I want to help them invest in themselves, whether that's on one-on-one personal coaching, whether it's on group coaching, which is probably more one-on-one, will probably be more personal. Group coaching or webinars will probably be more business, and also with digital platform, the creation of courses, the creation of digital assets that people can do and practice in their own time. I'm passionate about speaking. I'm passionate about individuals. I'm passionate about seeing people grow. I'm extremely disciplined. I'm consistent. And I bring all of that to the table with the people that I coach and I mentor. I also have a very soft spot for, mentoring in schools. I go in on Thursday mornings for half a day and I mentor in schools, the underprivileged or the challenged, either from broken families or homes or with children who, are just troublemakers and they don't have the direction. And I think if you can capture, we were talking about this before, if you can capture that at an earlier stage, if you can capture these young people at an earlier stage and give them some simple tools, that will just line them up and give them a foundation. Obviously, I see it with my son, 13-year-old. I see it. I see the same. So yeah, there's many things with Satoris that I want to do. Obviously, I'm juggling 2 businesses.
Yeah, must be difficult.
Yeah, it is. I time block a lot.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, because you've got, you're in theory juggling 3 businesses, because you've got, Cleo and your life coaching, but you're also a single father as well. So you can almost consider that a project
100%
business
right.
in itself. And
You're
you've got your life outside of all of that as well. So
Correct.
how do you juggle all of that? Because there's a hell of a lot in the mix there.
Yeah, I am disciplined.
Yeah.
I am consistent. People will probably say to me, I'm probably the most disciplined and consistent person that you'll know. I'm up early. I'm up at 5. I have an hour to sort of my own personal development, meditating. I'm at the gym at 6. I'm back for 7. I'm showered, breakfast, and I'm ready to go at 8. And then I time block some element of Satoris up to about 10. And then I'm here at Cleo until, whenever. Normally, I say whenever. I have to take my son to Air Cadets on Monday. I take him to football on Tuesday. He's gymming on Wednesday, Air Cadets Thursday. And I have one off on Friday. So I'm up to there, and then I'm taking him or putting him or taking him wherever he needs to go. And then I'm Satoris in the evenings and at weekends. Look, everything that I'm doing, I have 3 core things that I'm working towards: financial, location, and time freedom. They're the 3 things that I really looked hard at myself, and they're the 3 things that are really important to me. And that's what everything I do, every decision I make, every path that I choose, that's always at the center of my mind. So that's what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create businesses that enable me to have those three aspects. Because again, I never see myself retiring. I actually, especially my coaching business, I actually see that growing more and more the older I get. Just with obviously the experience that I've had, and I'm continuing to have. I want to be able to travel the world, and I want to be able to help many people with that. I want to be able to put courses out there that enable people to learn and grow. I want to be able to, I'm very good at listening and understanding what people are going through. And I'm very good at keeping people accountable. And I'm very good at being able to keep them consistent and build motivation. Because your motivation goes, you keep your consistency, because if you have the consistency, you get back the motivation. So it's all kind of interlinked, and it's just constantly evolving that and being and doing. And it's ingrained, it's the Satoris Coaching, the coaching aspect is why I'm here. Like that's the reason. That's my being. That's my reason, my dot, my niche, my why. And I saw that, and we come back to all my experiences, all my challenges, all my adversities. I had all of those to be able to put me in this position, to be able to help others, to be able to, holistically help people through my business acumen and my passion for personal development and my desire and my connectedness for spirituality. All of that intertwines and interlinks to be able to give me the ability to be able to push forward and help many people around the world. And we live in a digital age, right? I mean, that's the beautiful thing. I can help people in the other side of the world. And that's kind of where I want to be. And I want to travel, and I want to shout about it. And I want to be that spokesperson to be able to elevate and raise awareness for self-investment, because the biggest business that you're ever going to invest in is in yourself.
And also quite a nice thing of that as well is if you've touched many people's lives, like abroad, you've created courses. So whenever you've gone, physical gone, not spiritual gone, when your physical's gone, you've left a legacy behind. So
100%.
And you're still always there as such.
Yeah.
Give me an idea of what Westley looks like in 20, 30 years time. Like, what sort of life do you want to be living?
Good question. I mean, I come back to my three values, my financial, location, and time freedom. I definitely want to, I'm a big traveler. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to, not a digital nomad, obviously that's a phrase, but I want to be able to be free to go where I want to. There's a song in there. I want to be free. Like, I want to be free to do what I want to be. I want to be free to travel. I want to be free to be able to, to live the life of freedom that I want, because I have been very restricted in my life. All through my life, I've been restricted, right? I through my teens, obviously I was, a bit blind. Through my 20s, again, we talked about. Then obviously, the most amazing thing came into my life in terms of my son. And then I had to take the looking after him full time. And that adds an element of restriction. I can't just get up and go. My partner, she's just moved to Dubai as an example. So we're living a long distance relationship now. Right thing for her to do, because she wasn't happy in her job. She wasn't happy where she was at and what she was doing. And I'm an advocate of that. Like, I'm an advocate that a lot of people might be, oh no, don't go, and what are you doing? And it's like, no, you do you, and you've got your path. We've all got individual paths, right? I've got my life, she's got her life, Hayden's got his life, but we have a life together, and it's designing that correctly. And who am I to turn around to someone and say, don't go there? You do what's right for you. And I truly believe it's the right thing for her. She needs to stretch her wings. So, I want to be able to be in a position to be able to live, 6 months, 3 months in a location and to, do digital courses or digital coaching or one-on-one coaching or travel and coach for businesses and go in, maybe whatever it may be. I want to be in that position to be able to do that. I want to be able to be in a position financially. I can obviously support my son for whatever he wants to do. I want to be in a position where I'm able to kick back and relax. I want to be in a position where I can help businesses. I'd love to be sort of an investor into businesses, into maybe small to medium-sized businesses, to help nurture, grow, mentor these businesses through, to provide a helping hand to these, an avatar as an example, a startup, someone who's potentially gone through the same sort of situation as me, who struggles, who gets imposter syndrome, who looks at it with overwhelm and stress, lack of direction, lack of work-life balance, a big one. Burnout is a big thing at the moment. So being able to help businesses, I'm really passionate about that, because if I can help an entrepreneur, an individual and a business, I mean, that's a double win for me. And I'm always looking for double wins. You know, it's got to be a win-win for everything.
And you know, I don't doubt that you'll probably end up living that life. Just spending the last couple of hours of you, I can imagine you've probably designed your life, and I don't doubt it. You're not going to charge me for this last 2 hours. Yeah, I feel like I've been for a life coaching session.
You're good.
But Wes, I've enjoyed this so much, by the way, this last hour and a half, this chat. It's been a unique podcast episode for sure, and I've loved every single minute of it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to chat about whilst we clear it up, but thank you so much for coming on.
Absolute pleasure. No, it really has been. It's been great to talk through. You know, it's actually given a lot of clarity. I don't get to sit back and talk about my life so much like that. Actually, I'm always looking at other people's lives. Or my son's life, or just getting on with life. So being able to reflect and look back and talk about it in an open environment has been really, really, really great. So thank you.
Well, what you've been through from, you know, start all the way up to now, like, it's really impressive, mate. So congrats on coming out the other side, and you're spreading a great message, mate. So thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, Wes.
Cheers, Callum.